I'm going to show you guys how to clean and analyze your data in Jamovi. So of course you want to save it, export. You're going to want to save it as SPSS or randomized for your conditions. You're going to select export viewing data order for randomized surveys and then download it. My survey did not have that. Alright, so once you have this open, you just want to clean the metadata. So you're going to delete the things that we're not analyzing. Okay, so you want to start deleting when you get to the consent right here. You want to scroll through and make sure everyone consented. So this person didn't and they were booted, so let's delete them. All I'm doing is I'm clicking the row. I'm right clicking and delete row. Let's see if there's anyone who didn't finish. So we have a few people who didn't finish. We're going to highlight these rows, right click, delete rows. Okay. Also, you want to make sure no one answered anything incorrectly, especially any open-ended questions, such as my question 1. It asked them to say how many caffeine drinks they drink per day, only in a single numerical value. This person said 1 to 2. We're going to delete them because we can't assume if it's 1 or 2 and change it. That would be unethical, so we just have to remove them. This person wrote a sentence. Delete them. We won't be able to analyze that. Another person said 1 to 2. We're going to delete them. We won't analyze. This one, this is, I don't know, delete this guy. Okay, so once we have those deleted, now we can delete our consent form. To make sure everyone consented, we're going to delete that column. Now we're going to rename some questions and change our levels of measurement. So this is asking them for their gender. We're going to change this question to gender. This is going to be nominal. This is asking for the ethnicity and race. Ethnicity/race. This is nominal. This one is asking for their age, so we're going to rename it age. Age is continuous. Question 1, ask them about how much caffeinated drinks they drink. I'm just going to name this caffeine average. And we're going to make this continuous as well. These are Likert scales, so these do stay ordinal. But before anything, you want to make sure you don't have to reverse code any items before analyzing or getting your total scores. So if I remember correctly, my question 6 is reverse coded just because my questions on focus is negatively worded and this question is positively worded, so I want to go ahead and switch the responses. So what you want to do is, I like to click the question to the right of the one I want to reverse code. So question 7, I right click, add variable, transformed variable insert. So what that's doing is putting a brand new variable next to question 6, which is what I want. Let's rename this recoded underscore question 6. Before anything, source variable, we're going to choose the question that we are reverse coding, which is question 6. Just double clicking. You can see that it just copied and pasted the same exact thing. Before that, we have to transform it, so reverse code it. So under here, none, we're gonna select create new transform. Let's rename this coding. Select add recode condition. If you look back at your coding book or the scale that you used, it should tell you the range. So my range was 1 to 4. So depending what yours is, the numbers are going to be different, right? So equals 1. I'm going to start with 1, then use 4. 1. So opposite of 1 is 4. Add recode condition equals 2. We're going to use 3. Add recode condition equals 3. We're going to use 2. Add recode condition equals 4 then use 1. So you would have to use the numbers that your scale is on. Mine is 1 through 4. You can see this. Just click out here and it'll automatically recode it for you. Okay. So now that we have that recoded and all of our questions recoded, we can go ahead and do our total scores for our scales. So my IV is the caffeine average, my DV is the focus, and then my third variable is sleep. So at the end, I'm going to click this. It's going to show this pop-up. New computed variable, you want to select that. I'm going to name this focus. Give a description, total scores on focus scale, just so you know what this variable means. And then you want to click this FX right here. You want to scroll until you see statistical and click sum. This will be so familiar, kind of like Excel. So what you want to do is you want to double click all of the questions of this Likert scale. So mine is question 2, so double click, comma, no spaces, so just comma and double click the question. Comma, double click, comma, double click, comma, wait. So remember we recoded a variable. If you guys remember from previous labs, you can only include the recoded variable so it can be correct. So you're going to double click this one, comma 7, comma 8, comma 9, comma 10, comma 11. So my second variable ends at question 11, so that's why I only included these. You can just click out and it'll just spit you out the total score. So this is everyone's focus total score. So each participant, that's their score. We're going to do the same thing for our sleep. So I'm clicking the next empty box, new computed variable. I'm going to name this sleep. Description, total scores of sleep scale. Same thing, we're just going to click the FX, find sum, include only our, of course, sleep question. So that's question 12, comma, 13, comma, 14, comma, 15, comma, 16. Click out, it's going to spit you out everyone's sleep score. Okay, so we have the 2 total scores that we have to do before analyzing. Our IV is just the amount of caffeine that they take, so we leave that as is. So now we can start analyzing. So first you guys want to always do your descriptives. So if you don't remember, you're going to go up here in analyses, exploration, descriptives. This is how you're going to do your descriptive statistics. So you're going to need age. So age, we're going to put this in the variables. You'll see an output over here. We see our mean is 27.5645. If we round this, this should be 27.56. Standard deviation 6.9368. If we round this, 6.94. So in your paper, you would write that out. Age, mean, standard deviation, easy as that. Now let's look at our gender and ethnicity breakdown. So to get the descriptives of your gender and ethnicity, you want to just put them in the variables box and it'll spit you out all the descriptives so you know the exact count, percent, all of that good stuff. You're going to also include this in your paper. We can add age. We can even add caffeine average. So if we only include our caffeine average, so our IV, we see that the mean is the same, the standard deviation is the same. The minimum, people had 0, the maximum, someone had 5. So that's interesting. So now that we have all of our variables with the frequency tables, that means is we get the percentages, so it's easier for you guys to write it out on your paper. You have all of that here. Once you guys did your descriptives, let's move on to our actual inferential tests. So I have 3 continuous variables, so I could do 2 Pearson's R correlations for my final paper. So in analyses, I want to first look at my original research question, which is looking at the caffeine average and their focus. So in analyses, I would go ahead and go in regressions. correlation matrix. I'm gonna put my caffeine average, and if you scroll down, remember our total score. I'm gonna put my focus in there. So we see that we have a p-value of 0.5825, so 0.58. Our degrees of freedom are 59, and we have a Pearson's R of 0.0718. If we round this, this would be 0.07. So you would just go back to Canvas, look at your results analysis template. You would plug in your Pearson's R, your degrees of freedom, and your p-value. Since our p-value was greater than 0.05, there was not a significance that correlated with their average caffeine consumption with their focus. So now let's move on to our last inferential test. I'm also going to do another correlation, so correlation matrix. But instead, I'm going to look at my second research question, which is on caffeine average and with sleep. Okay, we see something a little bit different here. We see our p-value is 0.2168, which would be 0.22 rounded in APA. Pearson's R, you have a negative Pearson's R of 0.1604. Just be negative 0.16. So what this is telling us that the average caffeine consumption and their sleep was not significantly correlated. So that means higher caffeine intake was not associated with any meaningful difference in their sleep. So now that you guys did your two tests, you have your descriptives. Of course, you're just going to write this out in your paper. But I also want to remind you guys how to do your visualizations if you forgot. If you remember, in the final paper, only one is required. So let's say I'm prepping for my paper. I want to only have a scatter plot of my main research questions. So how to do this? You're in analysis still, you're in exploration. You're going to go under scatter plot, and we're going to put our x-axis as caffeine, and then we're going to put our focus as our y-axis. And for a regression line, we want to do something linear. All right, so we have our singular graph that is required. What you can do is you can right-click it, make sure it's highlighted, image, export. You can save it as a PNG, not a PDF, so it's much easier for you to just slap it on your document. And that's about it, you guys. If you have any questions, let me know.